Thank you, sir. All right, we have a little bit of time for questions. If people have questions, I don't think we have another mic today, so we're gonna have you just, use your lungs and belt it out. Maybe stand up a little bit, raise your hand, say your name, and ask a question. We have time for that. So what are you curious about from Toussaint?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. So what I'm working on right now is, I have a album that's releasing in November. We're having the music video premiere next Friday at Green Room. So before I got into finalizing these songs, I made the music videos for these songs. And so we made it's almost like a feature-length film. It's really a lot. And we made it, and we're like, we're gonna do a show. And we're gonna premiere these music videos and show it to these people. And so there's that. And then the other thing I'm finalizing is a film series called Radical that comes out in October. And it's like Atlanta, but in Minneapolis. And it's anthological, so they're all kind of disconnected, but they're all connected by the same city. And that's that. But what I'm working on right now, to very quickly answer your question, one is a short film called Lucky Boys. It's 2 old saloon Western characters out of time that show up at 2025. Now, I'll leave it there. You'll see it in like a year or two and you'll be like, oh shit, that's what he was talking about. And then the other thing I'm working on is just another book of poetry. So it's called Double Shotgun. So I was born in New Orleans and was raised in a double shotgun house. So there's that. Yeah. My favorite what? Oh, favorite font. Name of the band was The Blend at the time. So we were in 2001, had a teen band contest on Lake in Bloomington, of all places. And we were at Intermediate Arts, and we had to fill out the sheet of paper, like, what's the name of your band? What are you gonna do? What's your genre? And I was like, I don't know what the genre is. And it was writing it down, I was like, The Blend. Because some friend had said it before, he's like, The Blend is a dope name. And I was like, cool. So I wrote it down, and then it became a 10-year fiasco. I mean, touring, The Blend is still alive, we do reunions. But that's that. My favorite font right now is, it's called Made, M-A-D-E. It is solid, but there's also another one called Heavitas, Heavitas. And those ones, it's just a bold font. I love that. Now, the thing I won't tolerate is serif in a place that just, there's no need for serif at all. Just get that shit right out of here. I'm sorry for cursing at Creative Mornings. If serif is not called for, get it out. And I look at it and I'm like, can these people please go to defont.com and figure it out? That's just me. You can
definitely swear about fonts here.
Okay. Yes. No. Jose James actually went to my high school, I believe, South High School. Yeah, he's a little older than me. We were up against Annie Ragsdale, who was from Washburn, though. We won. And I think Annie Ragsdale got second. Great singer-songwriter. She got second. 2001, still living it out. Yes. The times that I showed up that I was the most proud of, okay. Well, it was, I went to a group therapy in 2020 in February. And the thing is that showing up, everybody's like, I showed up and I did the thing. And it's like, no, that's not it. And it can be it. But I think as within, so without. And so I went to this group therapy thing and they were like, hey, I think it might be good for everybody to like just call people and make amends. And oh Jesus, I knew this was gonna happen. The second I was like, Drew was like, talk about punk and things you've done, and I was like, I'm gonna talk about my grandmother and my mom and my dad, and I'm gonna cry. And I called my father to get complete with him, and I showed up and I told him, I said, hey man, you're one of my biggest heroes. And he was like, he didn't know how to compute it because my father is like very, very type A. And he was just like, well, you know, love and hate, different sides of the same coin, you know. And I was like, hey, take this moment, dude. It's okay. I love you, and you're one of my heroes, and I just want to tell you that. He's like, yeah, all right, well. And that showing up, like having that moment at fucking, how old was I? 38. I was like, what is happening right now? I was like, oh my God. I feel like I should have had this moment some time ago. But that was one of my most proud moments of showing up. Was like talking to my dad and being like, hey dude, like, I love you, and I'm here for it. And I call him, I tell him that all the time. I'm like, hey man, what's up, dude? I love you. What's going on? He's like, yeah, well, and he'll just sit there and take it in. I'm like, okay, cool. But like, yeah, that's one of my moments, to answer your question. Yeah. I got to Minnesota by way of divorce. Yeah. So at the age of 4, no, but here's the cool part, and I think everything happens for a reason. So I was born in 1982. My parents divorced in 1986. And I came here at when you're 4 and 5, it's like this magical time. When you're 0 to 3 is like psychologically the magical time. Like you're like interpreting the world and you're like, this is the way things work. And for me, I'm like, yes, people yell all the time. People fight. People leave without saying goodbye. And I learned all these lessons that, you undo in therapy. But at 4, I got here and I was like, we landed at my grandmother's house in Richfield. And we just hung out. And it would snow and I'd be like, this is crazy. This is insane. Because I was in New Orleans in the beginning and then came here. And so I got here in 1986. And then a year later, the friggin' Twins won the friggin' pennant. And so I was here and I was like, this place is fucking awesome. This is insane. And my grandfather was just smoking cigars and having the greatest time. I was like, this place is a party. I'm never going back to New Orleans. And then, that's how I got here. And then 91, we won it again. And I was just like, this is the coolest place as a kid. And then later on, I'm like, this is cold. I'm tired of this. I need to get out. But yeah, that's how I got here. Any other questions? Yeah.
Show up in here, but they literally don't know where to go?
Yeah, the one thing I would suggest is this. So Georgia Fort of Black Press is great. I would follow people who stream live events. King Demetrius Pendleton does that, and so does I think there's some other people that do it, but I would go to those places. Sabo Cat is a teacher that talks about policy and whatnot. And a lot of these folks are just speaking their mind on what's happening. Again, there's no direct benefit, immediately. There's no ad afterwards come on down, have a Coors Light. It's like, they're just doing the thing and they're like, I hope, and that's how my work with activism began. It's like, I hope this information benefits you. I'm not trying to change your mind. Godspeed. So Georgia Fort, Sabo Cat, and then King Demetrius Pendleton. King Demetrius Pendleton you'll just see a stream, and you'll be like, oh, it's people at the Capitol, what's going on? And you can watch and listen for yourself, and then decide from there how you feel about it. And that's all King Demetrius Pendleton does, which is great. I love that, where it's like, and when he's filming, it looks like you're getting a GoPro on somebody who's just showed up. It is first person AF. It's not, he's not talking during it at all. It's just there. But I would start with that. And then I would also, the other thing I would do, instead of just watching that, I would start asking the question of bigger narratives. What are they leaving out? Because in film, people know this, in art, as you all know, it is as important as what we put in as what we leave out. And what they're not telling you is as important as what they are telling you. So I would just start researching okay, well, what's going on there? And so I think I started watching Double Down News and Breaking Point to understand what's going on overseas. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. There's people talking about their own country. Cool. And the last thing I'll give you is, if it's happening in another country, the thing that I started doing is just following influencers in that country. Just immediately. or from that country that I've got come somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna listen. And I take like probably a week of just watching their videos and being like, oh, okay, well, this is how this person feels. I'm not gonna assign, Wolf Blitzer said this, so this must be true. It's like, no, this person is on the ground. This is what they're seeing. So, yeah. Yeah. What is it? Ricky and Jane. I literally thought you were referencing a media outlet, and I was like, God, that's my parents' names. The very best of Ricky and Jane. My father's name is Ricky, Derek. My mother's name is Jane. I needed to make an album about, them, because I understand that I was working with this kid, and I know that, Drew's gonna be like, you need to get the hell out of here. I was working with this kid in 2013 or 12, and his parents had just freshly divorced. He was 4 years old, and they were like, he has emotional behavior disorder. And I was like, okay. And I was a paraprofessional, I was working with him. And this little white kid, and he could throw a punch from his hip perfectly. He could run with like perfect form. I ran track and field, so I like study form all the time. And this kid just had perfect, like just physical composure. He could like throw a ball, like through a way. He just was insane. And his anger could be expressed in like the most purest, like physical form. And I remember sitting down with him, and he was like, one time he was like, he had done something that was like out of pocket, and I was like, hey man, we got to talk. And he's like, you're gonna kick me out? You're gonna kick me out again? And I was like, no. And like, he was 4 and he had been kicked out of 2 schools. And like, he was like, and so he was going into this pattern of response. And I was like, hey man, I'm not gonna kick you out. And if they kick you out, they're kicking me out. I'm going with you. And he had never been kind of told that. And he was like, what? You mean we are brothers? And I was like, yeah, we are. And I wasn't like, hey, my parents divorced at the same age too. I didn't say that, but I was like, I see where you're coming from. And like, after working with that student, I was like, it was 10 years later, I was like, I gotta make an album about this and write about this. And so that album was born out of being in New Orleans and going back to New Orleans. And I'll give you this, one of the things that happened, I went back to New Orleans in 2022 as a 40-year-old man. And I went to an Airbnb. I went to my friend's house. I went to Atlanta beforehand. And I was in an Airbnb. It was fine. I was in Atlanta. Whatever. I was at a wedding, woke up, operated, whatever. Then I took a flight to New Orleans. And I was at this Airbnb, a friend's house. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and stood in the doorway and just stood there, boxers, just looking out on the magazine street. Le Bon Temps Relais was just like out in front of me. And my friend was like, hey, Toussaint. I was like, what? Because I'm asleep at this point. And they're like, go the fuck to sleep. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went back down and laid down. I was sleepwalking. Went to an Airbnb, a different Airbnb the next night in New Orleans, woke up, and I woke up and I was sitting on my bed looking out the window. And I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm gonna go to sleep. My body had not processed the trauma that I experienced in New Orleans, even 36 years later. And so musically and creatively, I had to still write through that and talk through that. And so that album was like, I can't be sleepwalking in New Orleans next time. I gotta work through whatever this shit is. So I started doing that, and that's kind of where that album came out of. So, yeah. Anything else? Oh yeah. All right, we're done. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. No problem.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna do a couple last announcements and get you out of here on your Friday. Thank you for coming to Creative Mornings. When you're leaving today, if you haven't met somebody new and you want something to talk about, I want you to ask each other, how are you gonna bring more punk thinking into your creativity? This summer, how are we gonna be bigger punks, right? And as we learned this morning, or talked about this morning, being a punk is about caring too. So think about that as you go.